This is Eye on Africa, France 24's program focused on the continent. I'm Charlie James, filling in for Georgia Calvin Smith, and these are the headlines. South Africans go to the polls Wednesday, and the governing ANC is trying to hold on to its majority. Our correspondent in Cape Town joins with what you need to know ahead of the vote. Two French tourists who went missing in Benin have now been identified. As the search continues, the kidnapping raising fears that security is degrading in the nation. And knowledge is power for protesters in Sudan. A library of books on revolution is set up at the sit-in so they can learn from the past while campaigning for their future. Just hours to go until South Africa's general elections begin. On Wednesday, citizens are voting for both parliament and the president. The poll taking place during a testing time for the nation and its long dominant party, the African National Congress. Joining us now to discuss some of the top issues on the minds of voters is our correspondent, Aisha Ismail, who is in Cape Town. Aisha, South Africa has the highest wealth inequality in the world. 25 years after apartheid, whites still hold much of the wealth, while many black neighborhoods lack even basic services. How is this playing into the campaign?
Well, political parties, and especially the bigger political parties, have been promising people that they will eradicate poverty, that they will create more jobs, and that they will fix the economy. But South Africans are saying that, and especially the ruling ANC, they've been in power for 25 years. And as you point out, the unemployment rate in South Africa stands at 27%, and it's even higher for South Africans under the age of 35. Some people still do not have basic services. And the economy is ailing. So what South Africans are wanting when they go to the polls, they're going to be voting for a party that they can trust, a party that is going to be able to deliver on election promises. But what's interesting to note is that a lot of people that I spoke to were saying that up until today, they were saying they're undecided. They really do not know who they are going to vote for.
So a lot of undecided voters, but the ruling ANC party is still expected to claim a majority, even with a series of corruption scandals. And some South Africans are saying, the party can't keep coasting on its legacy of fighting apartheid forever. How is the ANC being challenged this time?
Well, of course, for the past 9 years under Jacob Zuma's rule, there was one scandal after the other. It was every time Jacob Zuma was in the news, it had to do with scandals. And of course, last year we saw Jacob Zuma being forced to resign by the ANC, and Cyril Ramaphosa has now been used to go an election year and to regain the confidence of the people that the ANC had lost, because a lot of people had lost confidence in the ANC. They said that Jacob Zuma had become an embarrassment and that they would not be voting for the ANC again. So the ANC used Cyril Ramaphosa to go around and to do the electioneering, and he has promised to fix the economy, he has promised to tackle corruption, and he has promised to create more jobs. But these are the promises that the ANC made 25 years ago. They also promised to create a better life for all, and people are saying this hasn't happened. But also, we mustn't forget about the legacy of apartheid. Apartheid did leave the majority of South Africans and Black South Africans wounded. And it's going to take longer than 25 years to fix this country.
Aisha, land rights are another issue under the spotlight during this campaign. The government is promising it will return land taken during apartheid back to Black South Africans. But how are different parties tackling this?
Well, for instance, the radical economic freedom fighters, they saying that they want to expropriate land, white-owned land, without compensation. On the other hand, the ruling African National Congress is also talking about expropriation of land without compensation, but they're saying they will do this within the confines of the law. And President Cyril Ramaphosa, during his election campaign, has reiterated that there will be no land grabs, that the land will be distributed, but that there will be no land grabs and that the distribution will take place according to South Africa's constitution.
Our correspondent Aisha Ismail in Cape Town, thanks so much for your reporting, and we'll of course be checking in with you a lot over the next 24 hours as this election gets underway. Now, another key campaign issue this time around has been immigration. The country has recently experienced waves of xenophobic violence as some locals blame foreigners for a lack of jobs. Our team in South Africa tells you more.
He was left for dead on the side of the highway, and when he looks back over the pictures of himself, Tina Takawira remembers all too well he was stabbed because he was Zimbabwean.
Said, we are foreigner, don't want no need of foreigners here. We are driving a taxi, us is not working.
It's a miracle that this driver is still alive. One of his friends was less fortunate. 2 weeks ago, he was burnt alive in his truck. South African hauliers employ large numbers of foreign workers. Attacks are frequent.
This is the reality in the transport industry. Though authorities, they try to sanitize it to regard it as a criminal event, but there's element of xenophobia in place.
Attacks on working immigrants reflect South Africa's frustrations over growing unemployment, and the authorities regularly fan the flames by promising to control the borders. Immigration has been a campaign topic for all the political parties. Last week, the mayor of Johannesburg spoke out about his concerns.
There can be no doubt that immigration crisis in our country, it's actually contributing pressure on government to provide services with our limited funding. As I've just really indicated, another practical example in our clinics, where presently we get between 25 and 39% of people visiting our clinics being undocumented people.
Without a census, no one knows how many foreigners live in South Africa. But migrants' associations urge the authorities to stop stigmatizing them.
If we trace 2008, 2015, and again now this election season, there's this pattern of eruption with xenophobia and a large denialism within politicians.
Tine and his friends are keeping their heads down in the hope they'll be able to keep working. They've been living legally in South Africa for 10 years and have nowhere to go.
Next to South Sudan, on Monday, a bushfire in the western Bahr al-Ghazal region gutted 4 villages. Officials say 33 people are dead, and that number is expected to rise because 60 others are in critical condition. Gusty winds fanned the flames, leading to the destruction of more than 100 houses and killing 10,000 cattle. Namibia's president has declared a state of emergency because of a severe drought in the country. The lack of rain has left 500,000 people without access to enough food. That's 1 in 5 Namibians. Tens of thousands of livestock animals have also died. The government is dedicating more than 35 million euros to buy food and water tanks and to transport animals to grazing areas. The sparsely populated country has seen a succession of droughts since 2013. We now know the identities of the 2 tourists who went missing in Benin. The men's families have confirmed their names, Laurent and Patrick. According to our reporters, they were kidnapped last week in a national park. Their local tour guide was found dead on Sunday, and the search operation continues. Benin had long been considered a bastion of peace in the region, especially compared to its neighbors. Now, news of the murder and disappearances has raised fears that Benin's security situation is degrading. Yana Lee takes a closer look at the state of security in the region.
President Patrice Talon calls it a gem, a national treasure that's helped boost tourism in Benin. Punjari National Park is a vast area that spreads over some 4,800 square kilometers. It's known for its diverse plant and wildlife, and it attracts tourists from all over the world. The park is situated in Benin, a relative pocket of calm in a turbulent region. Nearby countries such as Mauritania, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso and Chad all face security threats. Terrorists and criminals have taken advantage of the Sahel's neglected regions. Boko Haram, the Islamic State group, and Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb's offshoots and allies operate there. Armed bandits too roam some of these areas. France's Opération Barkhane has attempted to curtail insurgent activities, but by pushing them out of the Sahel, analysts say there's a risk of contagion to other countries.
These jihadists are very mobile and they know the region well. If they're in an area where they're being attacked, they'll retreat somewhere where no one will bother them.
Penjari Park is situated in the northwest of the country, on the border with Burkina Faso. Rangers patrol the park night and day to ward off intruders. Not enough, though, to convince French authorities. In 2018, the Foreign Ministry formally advised its citizens against travelling near Benin's northern border.
And finally, protesters in Sudan harnessing the power of the written word. An open-air library has been set up at the site of the ongoing sit-in, offering books once banned in the country. Many are related to human rights and revolutions. Nicolas Chamin takes us to Khartoum.
This open-air library is a result of the Sudanese revolution. Many of the books here used to be banned during Omar al-Bashir's rule. He was ousted last month after 30 years in power following mass protests.
I think this library is a very positive thing. Reading will help people be more educated. I've just been reading about the history of Sudan. The information we find here can help us in the next phase. People must read to develop ideas. This is the real revolution.
People can buy the books or simply sit down and read them. The most popular ones are those about politics and power.
Most of the people are looking for things that we've been deprived of, that we couldn't read in the past, that we couldn't get information about, such as uprisings. Before, we couldn't talk about freedom, human rights, democracy. We were repressed. The old regime was able to put a lock on our brains. But now, as you can see, it's freedom. Freedom.
Individual freedoms might be greater, but the political situation remains tense. The military council in power and protesters have failed for weeks now to agree on an overall joint civilian-military body.
That's all for this edition of Eye on Africa, but do stay with us. My colleague Mark Owen is up next with more news.